I'm the creative director at LiveX. LiveX, we're a production services, technical services company based in Hudson Yards, right around the corner. And we produce a lot of live digital series as well as a couple of daily live shows. And our bread and butter is big, large-scale live events. Like our biggest one each year is we handle the worldwide webcasts for New Year's Eve in Times Square. And then I also do we do some all the second screen for the USGA, for the US Open, and a bunch of other product launches and events aside from that. Today I'm joined by Aaron Fulmer and Ryan Gordon from Cheddar. These are the co-directors of broadcast engineering at Cheddar. They have gone from zero to OTT, if I can borrow a term from a previous talk we did, in about 2 years. They, a little over 2 years ago, just to give you a little backstory before we start this, John Steinberg and Peter Gorenstein came to LiveX and had this idea to start the CNBC for millennials, so to speak, and create a financial news network that appealed to a younger audience. This is a huge undertaking, as you can imagine. Anybody who's familiar with doing financial news, it is one of the most difficult things to do in the live space, especially because of the financial data requirements and pulling all of that through API calls and getting it into play out on graphics on air and making sure that everything is accurate because people are actually trading off of that. So with the startup mentality, they have taken on some of the largest players in the financial news sector and have definitely garnered a reputation for excellence in that area and have since branched out with lifestyle shows and things like that. So I'm excited to have them. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Great to be here.
Great. So first, I'm just going to kind of click through, if I can. So the description of this is something, it was as big as live streaming is now. It's nothing compared to the growth we can expect in the next 5 years. Today, viewers expect instant on HD quality on every device, but as technologies like VR, low latency, and interactivity gain more traction, they'll expect more immersive experiences from their live viewing habits. So we're going to dig into, try to predict what the future holds for content, technology, and monetization in the live streaming space. So we're going to start right there at monetization because basically this is the big problem everyone is dealing with right now. Everyone knows they have to live stream. Everyone is either making big social plays or OTT plays and creating apps and connected screen environments for their audience. That's one of the things that I know Cheddar has really excelled at in creating an ambient viewing environment to be everywhere at once. Where do you watch Cheddar? Everywhere you are. It doesn't matter. Their content finds you, which really is the way that we believe content should be delivered in the future as well. I think it is more difficult to attract an audience to, you have to have a very core niche type of content to be able to attract audience to your specific website, your OTT platform, or whatever. Certain things, obviously, earlier in the week, we had the head of TD Ameritrade Network, who's done a great job with giving custom content to their 10 million users. Things like that are a great use case for OTT. OTT doesn't work for every type of content, but it does certainly have its value for certain niche types of content that people are going to be loyal to and that people rely on. But will live streaming ever make money? I mean, I know as a services company, we get paid by the brands that we work for product launches and events like that. But specifically what I'm talking to here is live content-based streaming. Will the content creators be able to make money with live streaming? I think is one of the biggest questions that's facing our industry right now, and how we generate revenue based on the production costs involved with starting that process. So Guys, you all, I know you aren't quite as involved in all the deals. You just have to deal with all the fallout from all the deals. So first, let's talk to me a little bit about some of the different platforms and things that you all distribute on, and some of the different native plays that you're working on at Cheddar to be able to generate revenue and interest with not only audience but also investors. Aaron, you want to start?
Yeah, so I mean, back in the day, almost 2 years ago now, or a little over 2 years ago, we first started on Facebook Live. That was like the big live platform at the time to come out and like really try. Facebook was giving it a lot of gas, in everyone's timelines. It just made sense to just like open up there. Since then, I mean, we're on other online platforms. We're on Twitter. We've like experimented with Daily Motion in the past. We're on Twitch every day, and then from there, we quickly ramped up into the OTT space, so signing on with like Sling, Amazon, and now we just announced YouTube and Hulu are taking our linear offerings.
So it's interesting. Most people, when they go to make an OTT play with their content, they're singling out a single platform, or they're trying to create their own, and they're going to one place. Why did Cheddar decide to go everywhere? What is the benefit there?
I think it's just getting as many eyeballs as possible and just appealing to all of them, and just sort of coming at it with that, like, you can't just, like Facebook Live did really well for us for a while, but again, they tweak their algorithm, and then all of a sudden you're on Facebook Live and then you're not on anyone's timelines anymore, because now they put all the fire into like Facebook Watch, or that can always like shift. And I think John Steinberg, our CEO, has been in the social space for a very long time, coming from BuzzFeed, and he saw that, and he just knew like we had to get on as many platforms as possible and be really diverse about it. And so that way, if one shifts or they want to take it a new direction, we're at multiple places getting viewers.
You can't put all your eggs in one basket. That's really as simple as it is for us.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I know you all have been approached by platforms to have your content featured on their sites, on their platforms. One big hot issue is platform-supported content. I know over the past year, 5 of my shows were paid for by one of the major social networks. All the production costs were rolled into that. And I know that at least initially, and still carrying on with some of those platforms, they're supplementing some of the cost of production associated with delivering your content to those platforms. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on platform-supported content, and if you think it has legs, or what may happen with that?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, example that comes to mind is Twitter for us. They're a valued partner of Cheddar. They approached us probably over a year ago, and said, we absolutely love Cheddar. We're your biggest fans. And they worked up a whole deal with us to put us on the homepage of Twitter every single day. It was a 3 o'clock show, our closing bell show, for over a year was on the homepage of Twitter. We're going to talk a little bit later about kind of the shift that Twitter's undergone in their video, but that was really one partner, and a huge partner of ours, that came to us and said, we really love your content and we really want to do something with you. Let's figure out a revenue share, let's figure out how to make money together, but they approached us and did that.
But then that was also another perfect example of like, we did that for a while, and then the deal lapsed, and then you have to like go look at the next thing, right? Like go find the next partner who's willing to take these things on. And it's hard with Facebook Watch now. I think they're approaching some people and picking up production costs, but then the problem there is, maybe, and I don't know if it's confirmed, but it's like, we want you just exclusively to run on Facebook.
Right.
And that's hard, right? Like,
well, that's something that John won't do.
It's right. Our CEO just flat out won't do it.
No exclusive deals.
Right, no exclusives. And it's
way different approach than most people.
Yeah. And I think you even see some people who signed on for like one season, and then they go through that Facebook loop, and it's almost like a good test bed in that way, maybe. And maybe that's where that platform has some legs. Is like you can get out there and they'll fund you through your first season, but then when you go to renew, you can kind of shop it around and talk to Twitter or other platforms, or even other like major distributors, your ESPNs, Disney's. the big guys.
Sure. So maybe what I'm hearing is that it's a good way to pilot a series,
I think so.
right?
Yeah.
And then figure out what the best distribution model is from there.
Right, like if it really, really takes off, then you have the option to go and walk it around and see where else you can take it. And then it's hard if like your IP is tied to one thing or if they own the idea. It's a careful balance to try and not give too much to the platforms, but still retain some authority over it.
Yeah. We saw that. We did a show, helped with the production side of a show for Vox Media. The Verge has a show called Circuit Breaker that Twitter initially was promoting, and it was featured solely on Twitter. And we had mid-roll ads through BAMTech and all sorts of things, and it was a very good show from their audience engagement perspective. It's basically a cooking show for gadgets, and so it had so much buzz and interest among their audience. But one of the problems was after the first season, Twitter decided they didn't want to do it anymore, and so regardless, one of the biggest challenges is that the VOD asset wouldn't persist for them anyway, and so they would have to rely on all of the social clips to be able to continue engagement through their audience. So now what they've done is they've decided to go back to YouTube with this show, and one of the reasons for that is they know how to make money on YouTube. Right? This is a brand that has a huge subscriber base, and this is something that we're seeing and hearing from a lot of our clients is that we know how to make money on YouTube. We don't know how to make money on Facebook or Twitter yet. And likewise, if you're a subscription product, which we'll get into as well, then there's other avenues to making money, but the ad revenue has yet to be worked out. They've made a big push here in recent months with enabling mid-rolls and pre-rolls and things like that, but still, as far as social watching habits, social viewing habits go, what we're seeing is that it's very difficult to generate those ads because of the amount of time it takes to kick in. For instance, on Facebook, it takes a minute before a mid-roll ad will take place, and average social view time just isn't at a minute. Like, it just doesn't happen. So one of the things is like, oh great, we got ads now on Facebook, now we can make money on Facebook. Well, how if nobody's watching longer than a minute? So that's one of the challenges that I kind of wanted to lay out. We're kind of starting at where we currently are, and then we're going to hopefully push further, deeper into the future, and drive from there. But so that brings up this other concept, and we hit on it a little bit of, is it smart to own your content or to have it be a social contribution? And what are the challenges and problems with giving too much over to the platform side?
I mean, I don't know if this is going to answer your question exactly, but we look at it as we need to give out a lot of content for free. We need to get eyeballs on it, so that's why we're still on Facebook Live, we're still on Twitter, Periscope, all those platforms, but we have our subscription-based platforms. So we basically
is that still VHX, or is it?
For our Ched heads that we call them,
hardcore.
This is our hardcore Cheddar fans. $2.99 a month. You can go on our website. That gives you our owned and operated apps, so iOS, all of those. That subscription-based model. Then people who have Hulu subscriptions, who have YouTube TV, they can watch us obviously as much as they want, 24/7. We use the free platforms to drive people to paid platforms. That's kind of how we look at it, I think.
Right, like get that awareness out there. Of the 8 hours, we're live every day from the floor of the stock exchange, and now with Cheddar Big News, another 8 hours live, covering wider news topics. It's still important to sample it out there, and at the moment we're not even looking at like monetizing or doing mid-roll Facebook, because we'd rather just people either pay for our website and the minor fee, if you want to call it minor, or subscribe through a major MVPD. But it's important to be in all of those spaces and generate social awareness.
Yeah, I hear that. One of the things that like a lot of people are doing, one way to monetize live social video especially is through sponsored posting. And I know you all have done a lot in that space. Can you talk through some of the sponsorships and how that has played out both in native and in presenting it as a sponsored by post?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, most of Cheddar's revenue last year was branded content. So we have a ton of great sponsors. Big household names that you've heard. We do everything from branded integrations to branded shoots. So we'll fly out and do a shoot with somebody, and we'll kind of cover their conference. We'll cover CEOs that are there. I mean, we run the gamut, but everything from Dunkin' Donuts, they're a sponsor. HP, huge sponsor of ours. Branded integrations are really how we've taken this platform. And really, even on Facebook, we can still monetize with those views.
Yeah, specifically, talk about how, see, one of the things that I think has worked so well in the sponsored native postings and native ads inside of Cheddar is that the brands that you typically work with really align with your audience, right? So, for instance, we did an NFL draft show for SB Nation where we went to 32 NFL fan sites, SB Nation fan sites. It was sponsored by JCPenney. How many sports fans, young sports fans, are going to JCPenney? So I don't know what the brand fit was there, but I think that's something if you all are looking into sponsored postings and things like that, make sure you don't kill your brand in the process. No amount of money is worth dirtying up your content with misaligned sponsorship. So that's one of the things that you all have done really well.
Something else I think we do also, which is also a big driver of revenue for us, is produce content for people. So a good example of that is TradeStation. It's a trading platform. We produce content for them. We produce a half-hour, or actually 2 half-hour shows for them. So it's integrated to our 8-hour live 24/7 network. Integrated into that, we have TradeStation shows where we, still run the shows as if we normally would, but we, kind of use the TradeStation platform to talk about things. We use it as a tool, so it's not very obtrusive. That's kind of how we integrate these partners in.
Right, maintain the editorial control, and then if someone like TradeStation wants to come and talk to us, we made a show around cryptocurrency, right? We're not going to make a show around trading oil futures. Like that isn't going to connect with the millennial. Let's focus on like cryptocurrency and do like a really good deep dive in that space. And just working with those brands to deliver for both them and us in that sense.
Let's talk about Amazon for a second, because you all just debuted a new show with Amazon Home. I know you all are currently leveraging this. It's not a part of that, but first of all, talk about that partnership a little bit, but then we'll get into some of the other things that I think Amazon is doing that are really beneficial, especially in regards to monetization.
Sure. Yes. I mean, the Amazon partnership is a super exciting one. Basically, we just ran kind of 2 experimental shows with them. Literally on the homepage of Amazon.com, Cheddar did basically a version of our kind of Cheddar home shopping. So Amazon actually produces their own shows. A lot of people don't know this. Amazon.com, if you visit, I think, a couple days a week, they produce kind of their own little HSN QVC. And there's a carousel right there on the homepage. It's, check out these cool products. It has a link to the page. Cheddar decided to do this for them. So products that obviously go towards our demographic, our audience. A really new partnership, so I don't know a ton about what's on the roadmap.
Sure, I know it's brand new. It's brand new, but I just wanted to hit on it because I think one of the biggest underutilized resources in monetizing live video at this point is shoppable, clickable video, especially some of the things that we're seeing with HTML5 overlays. It's very easily open to everyone in Twitch currently. Anyone who's doing anything in the gaming space, you can design your own HTML5 overlay and generate actions that can lead to revenue. Amazon, obviously, with the Amazon Home stuff, is got shoppable products right there. We're seeing this in a lot of different private or I shouldn't say private, but more white label streaming services where they're enabling, you'll watch a video and then they'll show you all of the things that were featured and how you can buy those things. And that is another side revenue stream that just wasn't possible on linear, on television. And, other than if you order right now, call us, kind of a thing. But to natively integrate the shopping experience with the video experience, I think is one of the biggest ways that we'll see a jump in revenue for creating live video, especially because everyone knows, like, if there's any DTC campaign or anything like that, direct to consumer campaign, it's the immediacy of the action. So live video fits that much better than any pre-recorded video could, because you'll get to see the numbers start to spike, we're selling out of this, those kinds of things. I mean, this is a very like hacky home shopping network kind of an old school idea, but it definitely can be reinvigorated with the ability of the technology of the player now with HTML5 overlays to make it more interactive and engaging for the shopper. And that's one thing that I see in the future of the Amazon Home product and hopefully elsewhere as well. So lastly, in this slide, I just that kind of speaks to my other point, is what happens in the future when we can take all of the metadata that we've learned through search and through, like Facebook, for instance. It's as far as I know, and I'm not in the inner workings of Facebook, but they have so much targeting data on people, right? So what if you're watching this kind of content and Facebook can serve you up not just an ad, but a direct shoppable link right there inside the player that you can then create more revenue streams for your client that you're creating the content for. And one of the things in yesterday's panel, the first one that kicked off the live streaming summit, Rick Capstraw from Verizon Digital Media Services talked about one of the things that he thought would be the future of live streaming is to have an individualized live stream for every end user. And that is mind-boggling today, but I don't think we're too far off from that in the next 5, say 10 years. That you should be able to serve up a very targeted, much more beyond what we use the word targeted today. That's going to look completely different in the next 5 years of what a targeted live stream is to the individual user. So that's something to be thinking about if anybody in here is thinking about building their next platform, of how they can create more interactivity through these individualized live targeting methods. So I'm going to move on, and we'll have time for questions at the end. But yeah, we've touched on this a little bit. I'm gonna spend a little less time on this slide, but the future of platforms is obviously something everyone in this room is probably concerned about. Who's going to win? Who wins at live video, right? Right now, Facebook is winning the day. I think everyone can agree. But who are the challengers out there that have an opportunity to take that back? And what are some of the reasons why we are seeing, especially with the recent algorithm changes and things like that, we're seeing such a backlash against social video and against why we're giving our content away to these platforms to increase their ad revenue rather than our own. So anyway, I know you guys have some good nuggets. You just can't wait to get on this topic. But who's winning? Facebook, right?
I think right now Facebook's winning.
Okay.
I mean, in just
will they win?
sheer
Will they win
numbers.
at all? Is really the better question.
It's so hard to say, right? I mean, when you see deals like MLB is streaming like 25 games a year on the weekdays, and they're blacking out everything else, and they're driving people to go watch on Facebook only, that's pretty massive, right? And it just kind of also goes to show how out of touch the broadcasters are in a way, and that they can't create a live experience and also drive people to that. Right. Even some people you see commenting on those specific streams are people that are why am I watching baseball? And there's all of these things floating above. I can't see the ball. There's a happy face floating around it. And it's that's one of those classic mismatches, right? MLB's doing it because Facebook has all those eyeballs at the moment, but you gotta think people are gonna get wise and develop a platform and be we have a player, we can do HTML5 overlay, we can do a shoppable thing in the break where it's like, hey, check out this like custom rookie card. We're only selling it on our live stream. Click right here. You combine all those things together. When you own, I mean, MLB owns this stuff. Like they should be pushing this.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're the content rights holder. I mean, they're obviously giving those rights away, which are very valuable. I mean, how is it more valuable for the MLB to create Facebook live streams than to sell those to a local sports network, right? It's a pretty interesting concept there. So, you mentioned all your eggs in one basket thing a little while ago, but the next topic really is should content creators be going all in on a certain platform, or are we all hedging our bets? And in hedging our bets on all of the different platforms, are we losing out on creating any sort of loyal fan base engagement that can really generate subscription models and other things that we know work in monetizing our video? So,
again, hard to say. From our philosophy and our company philosophy, it's as many eyeballs as possible. And I would say that's primarily because of our revenue model. Because we are branded content, because we have sponsors like Dunkin' Donuts and HP, if we can say we're on 50 or 30 or 20 different platforms, that's that many more eyeballs. So we want as many eyeballs as possible. Other people who are really looking for like that niche, like Twitch comes to mind immediately. Where I feel like, this is just generally, I feel like Twitch streamers kind of are very loyal to Twitch. They just stay on Twitch.
That's it.
They don't multi-stream because
not
it's
even
loyal,
Netflix or Hulu. Like it's not even what we
such
think
a
of
loyal
streaming.
fan base. So I think it depends on what you're trying to do.
And it's not only the fan base, but it's like, again, it's like the Twitch platform they built it for that audience, so the creators want to stay there, right? And I know Twitter wants to offer something, Facebook wants to offer something, but I don't think anyone has a deep enough features set that Twitch is offering to gamers, right?
Right.
Until someone can come to video producers and be like, we have all of this cool stuff ready to go. Not to say that the Facebook happy face button floating across is cool. It was cool 2 years ago, but what is that? What is that next thing? And what is the new interactive element?
Yeah, it was interesting. The panel that Chris Knowlton in the back led a little bit ago one of the guys was mentioning a game that was created on Twitch to utilize the HTML5 overlays and have a choose your own adventure type interactivity. I think use cases like that are really compelling. I believe he's from Ex Machina group, but I think use cases like that are really compelling for that specific content, and it makes sense to just go all in on live streaming on Twitch for the gaming crowd. But it kind of brings us to my next point. There's a huge difference between content performance and content value that I think is really misunderstood in a lot of ways. Just because you have a million viewers, does that generate anything for your client? One of the big benefits that we have in live streaming as opposed to linear is that it's very easy to capture information about who's viewing and then to return those targets with targeted ads, email blasts, other types of advertising campaigns that can create real ROI for the brands that we work for. And I think a lot of times it's too premature to get caught up in view counts and likes and reactions and shares when the goal of your client may be to have a completely different set of values that they're trying to go after. Brand loyalty doesn't necessarily translate into a lot of views, right? But brand loyalty is more valuable to a lot of brands that we work with. Creating the right content with the right audience is more valuable than getting the maximum amount of views. And I know that you have some products in particular that speak directly to that. I'm thinking, for instance, even the Strayer MBA thing or whatever. Very, very, very low viewership. Why is it worth it? But to Strayer University, the Cheddar MBA or the John Steinberg MBA is one of their most valuable products internally, right? So, and one of their biggest, the whole goal of live video for them is to create more enrollees into their program.
Right. The Strayer program it's super interesting in that it's for context, it's a digital entrepreneurship program offered through Strayer University that John Steinberg leads, and the entire course takes place on the Facebook platform. So, which is again, it's like kind of a cool idea to take a traditional college course, and we release the videos on the platform. There's commenting there. There's all the homework assignments are there, and it's very, it's all of the community sits right in that one spot, which is just like a cool use of that.
And so obviously this is another one to my next point about this is a perfect use case for how a certain type of platform would drive the type of content you would create for them, right? So you're not going to be doing the news of the day, so to speak, on when you're doing those shows, right. But you're going to drive content that's specifically beneficial to their students, But as far as the social platforms, because we know viewer attention span on social as opposed to OTT is much lower. Do we change the type of content we create? I mean, for the past several years, one of the biggest mistakes that everyone has been talking about in this industry is like we're basically repackaging television shows and putting them on social media. And like, is that an effective way of using your time? I think, to a certain extent, it is important to pay attention how the platform can drive the content you create. At the same time, it can also lead to a danger of you going outside your brand, right? If you have a Cheddar Scoops, which is a very long form piece, right? Cheddar Scoops is some very in-depth long form journalism that unveils. You guys can speak to it better than I can, but it makes news, and that's the whole goal of the program. That type of thing. I mean, I know it's very interesting for me to sit there and watch it in a long form format, but I don't know, how much that, how well that performs against the A block at the opening bell at the stock exchange.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I mean, totally. You kind of hit the nail on the head with that. We put those clips up on Facebook because, again, kind of why not? But we definitely do. I mean, we're all on all these platforms. We're on social platforms. We're on Hulu, YouTube TV, traditional. It's funny to call OTT platforms traditional. But we do kind of still take note of what hours of the day we are on social, and we do change our content slightly for that. So, of course, when we're on Twitter at 3 o'clock every day, we're going to make sure we're really looking at Twitter, and we're really talking to Twitter users. We're taking comments. We're directly talking to people. And then, hours over or not, we're obviously not going to do that. So we do, to kind of answer your question, we do change our content slightly based on the platform. Mm-hmm. But we're on so many platforms, so it's hard for us.
Right, and like when we get into those hours when we're not on social, it's like we kind of switch into like the lean back experience where we'll do like big stock dives, where we'll go and like talk about one topic for like 5 minutes. Or we'll bring in a scoop, and again, it's like that long form
5 minutes
thing.
is long form, by the way.
Yes, long form, yeah. 5 minutes of long form, and so it's like, it's more of that where you're right, like A block, opening bell, we're on every platform right now. We're gonna just cruise through stories and just like hit top things, what's going on, boom, 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 talk to the top guests. That's like that's prime time, right?
Right.
And then when we're outside of that, in our like OTT mode, that's when we can get more, into meatier subjects.
The point, right, is another example. Tell us what the point is and a little bit about that.
Go ahead.
The point is a partnership Cheddar basically just had with Fusion, the Fusion network, a traditional cable network. Great partnership with them. We basically produced a season, basically a mini-series for them. And the point was hosted by our CEO, John Steinberg, and he interviewed a bunch of top guests, Gary Vaynerchuk, Paris Hilton. Just a
It's really good. If you guys haven't seen it, The Point with John Steinberg, you can find it on Fusion, HuffPost. I think
it's shared on our social. I think
shared on social.
now.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically that's definitely long form content, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a show we produced in conjunction with Fusion.
And it's on Watch.
It is on Watch.
Yeah.
It filters down, and it comes into that like, how do you get the content in front of everyone still? So we would do first runs with Fusion, and I had like a lockout of like 2 weeks where they had it, and then we get to put it on our OTT platform, and then it can like go down to Facebook, right? And it's just
That's interesting. So the scheduling and rights management is, a big issue in any streaming. A lot of the big shows that we do maybe only have like a 24-hour after live rights, and then we have to pull it down for rights use cases. But you all actually have some different models where you have to let somebody else take it for a while before it reaches the Cheddar proper channels, so to speak.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Putting them first.
Yeah, I know when we were working out that deal with Fusion, it was a huge, a big point for our company was to make sure Fusion was okay with that. Basically, it's a big point. I get it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Fun.
Yeah.
But basically, we talked to Fusion and said, hey, this is really important for us. We want to be able to trickle this down to all of our platforms, not just your platform. So that was, something we had to work out with them.
Yeah, so I kind of have to skip back to some of my points about Twitch for a second because everyone right now in live streaming, if they're creating a live streaming product, they're very concerned with interactivity. I know a lot of companies that are doing a lot of great things in this space. I interviewed Aubrey, actually sitting here, my counterpart. She interviewed Patrick Dubois at Zender TV about some of the cool things that they're doing with choose your own adventure type live streams. And I think the HTML5 overlays things have a way to go beyond interaction for like audience control methods of how what is actually playing out on screen. So if you can tell a host what to do and really affect what goes on in the live stream, I think that is another obvious future of a lot of these platforms that is really underutilized right now. When people talk about engagement and interaction, a lot of times they're just talking about like asking a question, getting a response. But if once the audience starts to control what happens on the live stream, I think we're going to see a whole new wave of types of content that we can create for these platforms. And then when I was talking about this last night, actually, with Chris Michaels from Wowza, he suggested I look into chatbots. And I was like, yeah, well, everyone knows about chatbots. They've been around for a long time, but how can I use them? So he gave me some use cases where people are using bots inside of Facebook for if you type something in the comments through the API calls, you can scrub those comments and then get a reaction to a private messenger from a chatbot that says like, oh, you're interested in this, like here, check this thing out. And like that can be another way of moving around the platform's capability of having calls to action and actual engagement that leads somebody to a viewer to another destination that is so difficult to do on Facebook, because that's one of the biggest problems is a lot of brands are trying, media brands especially, also like Cheddar, are trying to get people to buy back into their own content because they don't want to be too heavily invested into Facebook. So I just wanted to mention that before I move on. That are you guys doing anything with bots right now, other than all the fake likes that you guys get?
Oh, wow.
Just kidding.
All those Russian accounts were shut down. Yeah, so,
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Right. No, I think we're experimenting with a Twitch chatbot, but like and Facebook Messenger back in the day. But no, nothing crazy. I haven't heard of that actually. That's super smart.
It's really cool,
Yeah,
isn't
that's
it?
really cool.
Yeah, that kind of blew my mind of the possibilities that for some of our clients, especially product-based stuff. When I'm doing a product launch, I handle a lot of the DJI product launches for the drones, and if somebody can chat and comment like who wants to buy a new Mavic or whatever, and then they can get a link to buy. If they type in the comments, I want to buy, and then they can get a personalized link that can pop, that can lead them to a buy page that has their name and everything like ready populated. Hey Rob, glad you're interested in the Mavic. Here it is. Here's the pricing. Here's the bundles. Like that can be done inside of Facebook today that I just wasn't even aware of. So I think that's really interesting for the future of platforms. But I'm going to move on because we got a lot to get through. So a couple of weeks ago, when I was starting to do some research for this talk, I decided to put, I'm a member of I don't know if anybody in here is big on groups on Facebook, but they're a really good way to engage with like-minded individuals. And so I'm a member of about, I don't know, 6 or 7 live streaming user groups, whether they be on the technical side or the marketing side. And they're a good resource for me to stay on top of any issues that may happen in production, but also just to share and generate ideas. So I put out a research question, to everyone in those groups saying, what is the future of live streaming? Because that's obviously the topic that we've been tasked with here today. And it was interesting. I did not get any of the responses I expected. Now, granted, there's a wide variety of users in those groups, and certainly not not everyone in those groups are a major network like Cheddar or like a high-end broadcast and streaming company like LiveX. But one of the biggest things that people were concerned with was democratization. And that really hasn't entered my world yet. So I thought it was worth addressing because it was comment after comment. I mean, literally over the 6 or 7 groups, probably 40 comments on democratization being an issue in their business models and them pitching a live stream, a live network, only to have somebody turn around and generate it on their phone or whatever. And that hasn't reached me yet, but I do think that it's an obvious concern for some of the people in this industry that is worth addressing. So everyone knows there's every year at NAB and here there's some great tools out in the expo hall. Every year things get faster, cheaper, better. That's general way that technology works. The tools make it a lot easier for us to do what we do. And Cheddar has certainly pioneered a lot of this. And these 2 guys in particular, because they're the co-directors of broadcast engineering, they've had to come up with very scrappy, in-between methods of capture, delivery, and distribution to deliver what appears to have the production value on par with an MSNBC or a Fox Business, but they're doing it at a 1/10 of the buy-in, right? Talked about that process from starting with no control room and then scaling up, and how you found the in-between solutions that made it make sense for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, starting down at the first set of ours at the New York Stock Exchange, which is one of our premier locations, and we're given a space that I'm not even joking is
about the size of this table.
Right, it's about not even joking, the size of the table. And that's all the real estate we have. And it's how do you get broadcast cameras up? How do you shoot and get robo? And that's actually where LiveX first came in to consult on all of that. But I mean, we shoot every day with their Blackmagic Mini micro studios with little Olympus 4/3 lenses. Yep. And those are the daily beasts every day.
Cameras are probably 4 feet away from the talent, from the host. I mean, it's the least ideal broadcast shooting situation you've possibly ever seen.
But you have 6 cameras in 5 feet.
We have 6 cameras in 5 feet. We have every possible angle of everybody.
Right, just to cover it. And then the prompter is this little tiny thing that's half gaff taped and screwed to the top of the camera. And that's what the talent's looking at every day. But it's cool because that was a constraint, and you have to build around those constraints, and that's sort of what this whole process for Cheddar is being okay, how do we build a network with this limited amount of money, and then you have to go get creative and go look at the expo hall and be what could we pull and borrow from all of these little things.
When you start looking, you look at a broadcast control room. We have 4 full-size broadcast control rooms at this point, 3 and 1 small one actually. When you really sit down in one and you start speccing out what you need, of course, both of us come from kind of traditional TV, and we look at it and we list out everything, and we're does every station really need, 5 monitors, a router panel? Does everybody need that? Does everybody really need that? And you cross off so many things, and we've just became really, really good at crossing things off.
Right. The necessities, right? even when it comes to like our new studio and the build around it, it's like, oh well, it would be so cool when we do that really nice bump shot from the ground up with the jib, and the whole background's gonna look cool. And we sit there and go like, oh, that one shot we're gonna use like for 5 seconds once every hour. Like, why do we need to build out all this super nice stuff? Just focus on that thing the camera's gonna be shooting 95% of the time, and we'll do some cool bump out thing with like a graphic or something in After Effects that wipes on and is like even cooler, and no one's the wiser, right?
We
Like,
just saved $500,000. Like, it's,
Right.
you know, it's like, it's nothing, because we don't have to raise the ceilings now. We don't have to like take all this stuff out. We don't need the chip. Like, you know, there's a lot of ways that you can, you know, really just cut corners on a lot of this stuff.
Well, and in many cases, you know, if you have the benefit of being unchained from legacy broadcast systems, then you can go out and make a bet on like, I'm going to use these little Blackmagic micros, and like for the longest time, I know John would tout that these are the best cameras in the world. He says it all the time, and made by an amazing company called Blackmagic Design, which is something you probably wouldn't hear from a broadcast engineer. But you know, we really like those because actually we did find that we got a better performance gain. Like as far as the picture quality of those cameras, with even though they're small and whatever, they were using micro Four Thirds sensors, but the competitor is using very legacy based PTZ cameras with very, very small sensors, and so you get this beautiful feel of the lights behind them in the stock exchange floor falling off into bokeh, and it looks fantastic, and you would never know that this is a little $1,000 camera with a $300 lens sitting on it. And then you guys have little pan tilt heads, which are like $100 a piece. Like, I mean, you know, that kind of a solution is something, when we talk about democratization of the tools, it's not about degrading quality. I think too often that is one of the biggest factors in the conversation. They're like, well, I don't want to go down to a phone, right? Everyone goes down to a phone, right? You don't have to go all the way down to a phone, right? There are other tools, other solutions that can make it easier for you to produce a really highly professional broadcast, but save on the cost of traditional broadcast equipment. So I wanted to make that point. The other thing is this mobile takeover. Now, I think I think you guys would agree that the mobile phone is one of the most powerful tools we have in broadcasting, but it is right for the right type of content and the right platform. So, one of the things that I really like, that I watch Kristen and her co-host walk the floor of the stock exchange, that's something that you all can't do with your current setup because, RF is unreliable in there, and it's not like you can be running cables all across the trading floor while people are running around with tickets. So they do a little pre-show on LinkedIn and elsewhere, Twitter, I think. Snapchat, Instagram,
right,
where they walk around and they give a preview of the day just before the bell rings. Talk a bit about how you all use the phone integrated with your traditional broadcast environment.
Yeah, I mean that's a perfect
Traditional.
Traditional. No, that's a perfect example. It's like, it's still, looking at the platform and being like, people want personal, messages to them when they're on Instagram, when they're on Snapchat. They don't want to see 30 seconds of some interview that we shot on our set. Like, that doesn't fit there. So it makes more sense for them to take the topics they want to talk about and present it differently. And you're right. I mean, the phone opens up so many things because they can just talk right to this thing and walk around, and there's not a camera guy who's bumping into other people, and we're like competing, and we have to get them mic'd up, and it's just like saves so much of that time for that platform, and just makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the right approach. If you are going down to the phone, make sure it makes sense for you, your content, and the platform. The USGA was just up here in the last segment, and they just started using little Osmo mobiles for some of their amateur tournaments that they don't do a professional broadcast crew, a full broadcast crew to go out to, and they have some of their producers walking around with groups on course, giving live golf coverage from a little DJI Osmo going live to Facebook. I think that is one of the more compelling use cases for the mobile production environments, because you're in the middle of a golf course where there is no internet infrastructure beyond 4G. It can be very difficult to have power and other things like that. So it is definitely valuable, and it's not to be discounted. But at the same time, I don't see. We built a kit, a Sling Studio kit with, I think, 5 mobile phones with lens mounts and stuff like that we could go out and do a multi-camera mobile phone production with. Nick Bocosi, sitting here in the front, our VP of engagement, went to the Mobile Journalism Conference in Dublin, and this was the use case that we built that kit for. Because it was a Mobile Journalism Conference, he showed up with 5 iPhones running a multi-camera show and overlaying graphics with an iPad. It was amazing, but obviously it doesn't fit every type of content. But I think it's important to know what's possible out there. And then with everything getting faster, better, cheaper over time, I think since this is we've been talking about current use cases, although a lot of these are bleeding edge. One of the things that I think is the biggest point to make for the future of the democratization of the tools is that eventually I believe that all these tools will just fall into the background. And at the end of the day, storytelling is your biggest commodity and talent is your biggest commodity. And without those two elements, it doesn't matter how good your infrastructure is. If you can't create compelling content that engages your viewers, then it really doesn't matter whether you're shooting on an iPhone or $200,000 Arri Alexa, right? At the end of the day, you need to create compelling content. So, and I think, I'm a big Gary Vee fan, and he believes that by 2025, that talent will become the biggest commodity in every industry, and if it hasn't already. So I think that's the other point worth mentioning before we move on. So anything you guys want to add to that?
Yeah, you
Cool.
nailed it.
You nailed it.
Great. So the future of engineering, who cares? So I'm running out of time, so I'm going to skip over that, but I really didn't want to talk about that anyway. It was all about codecs and compression wars and things that really, to my last point, I don't think really matters. I'm going to use whatever people tell me I need to use today, and tomorrow it's going to be a different codec. It's HEVC or VP9 or AV1 or whatever. I really don't care. Just give me the box. I'll spit it out, whatever flavor you need. So I didn't really want to spend any time on engineering, so I'm glad we're almost out of time. Lastly, I just want to talk about the future of display. And it's not because my title's creative director. I was actually a technical producer before that. So, but anyway, lastly, I really want to talk about display because I think this is something that isn't talked about enough in the conversation. How will images be viewed in the future? I think right now everyone's trying to reach the phone. But, and connected devices, wearables, didn't really work so far. I know a lot of, how many in here bought an Apple Watch at some point in their life? Okay, at least half the room. Who's still wearing their Apple Watch? Same amount, amazing. Look at you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Is that version 3?
Loyal.
Okay, so I could be wrong, but the wearable adoption I don't think has caught fire as a lot of people had hoped. And one of the reasons why is that, do you watch videos on your Apple Watch?
Never. No.
How about photos?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah, is it? I don't know.
So, why is that the case? I mean, obviously now recently they're connected. They have 4G capability or whatever. So I ought to be able to stream video to those, right? So, I think that we're going to see a lot more wearables that are video enabled in the future, but not wearables in their current sense. So Google Glass is an epic failure. Apple Watch has had mixed results as far as adoption, and certainly it's been Apple's biggest loser from their product lines. But I think we're going to see more connected clothing and more integrated devices that aren't something like a repurposed phone on your hand, right? So one of the things that was really innovative that our VP of Experiential at LiveX did this year with a fashion client was to create an LED screen on the back of high tops for them. And then he was able to send projection mapped and update the content that was going into those shoes as they were walking down the runway, and being able to deliver to those shoes. And that opened up the idea of like, why couldn't this blazer have a screen that I just look at my arm anytime I want to view, and all of a sudden, like those vanishing mirrors that turn into screens, like can it display what I want to see at that time? I mean, I think as far as the future of live streaming goes, is when we can really free ourselves from an actual screen. Is where the next generation of content delivery is going to land. It's going to be real interesting to see this summer. Corey in the back, who introduced me, he as soon as Red announced the 4D holographic display phone, he placed some pre-orders on that. We hope to get those here June, July, and be one of the first companies to figure out how to program for holographic display. And I think that that is certainly another wave of technology that we can be looking for, creating new types of content for. Is there anything that Cheddar is thinking about in terms of really just like blowing out the current idea of delivery?
One of my pipe dreams and something that I've always wanted to do, and we kind of thought about it with 360, and I don't know. I don't think 360 is going anywhere either.
360 is dead.
It's basically dead.
That's why it's not in this presentation.
Right. We'll call it
here first.
We'll call it dead. But we're on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, and one of the coolest things, and I think VR has some legs, and maybe we'll see it go somewhere. But if we could do a show that's not at a set, but what if they're just standing in the middle of the floor of the stock exchange, and the Snapchat IPO is going on, and now all of a sudden you can look around, you're there, and I want someone talking to you here, and then all of a sudden we can throw to someone over there. They're like, oh, let's throw to the guy in the pit, but you can just turn and look at that person. I think, thinking about what the news is and where they are and how that could all be merged together, whether that's through VR and Oculus or whatever the next.
Room mapping, is another thing that I have up here.
The HoloLens, the Kinect, I think had room mapping at one point. Whatever that is and what may be, more experiential.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I think a company obviously like Google has done so well with mapping the world. They were working with the technology, the 360 cameras that they had available to them at the time. What if you go back now and Google Maps does that again, but creates volumetric mapping of every space in America, for instance? And then as a content creator, can I create content that can projection map into the real environment, so it's a more natural blend of AR and VR? That's the only way I think that AR, VR can actually exist on into the future. I don't think it's me with a headset in a dark room. It's actually being able to integrate it into my daily life that we'll see some real improvements in that type of technology and display. So I know I'm out of time here. Any last words from you guys?
I don't know. We covered a lot of ground.
We did. I hope you all enjoyed this. Once again, I'm Rob Baynard with LiveX, Aaron Fulmer, and Ryan Gordon from Cheddar. You guys can come up and ask us any questions because we're out of time, but we really appreciate you guys sticking around this last session, and thanks for coming to the Live Streaming Summit.